Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the FINITE Podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. We don't have a guest today, and it's just going to be me. I've been noticing the typical mad rush of marketing predictions for the new year, and I thought it would be fun to dive into them together, to put our critical thinking hats on and assess which ones we should really be listening to and which ones are a bit of fluff. I think we can all agree there's a lot of fluff out there. The FINITE Podcast, right from the start, has always aimed to cut through that fluff and offer tangible, no BS advice that you can use in your strategies or start thinking about immediately. I don't actually often introduce myself on the podcast, but I'm Jodi. If you haven't found me on LinkedIn yet, please do. I'll put my LinkedIn in the episode description. I would love if you could send me a message to let me know if you enjoyed or hated this episode format. And trust me, I'm happy to keep chatting away if so, or bring back our amazing guests if not. Even if you just want to say hi, I would love to hear from you. So I've been the host of the FINITE Podcast for over a year now, talking to around 30 incredible B2B marketing leaders. A lot of these have been CMOs and executive members of tech organizations who have talked quite strategically about how they approach both marketing execution and team leadership. These are from companies like 8x8, SurveyMonkey, IFS, Oak North Bank, and even academics at the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, which is the one that collaborated with the LinkedIn B2B Institute to create the 95/5 in market, out of market rule. You might have heard of it, and if you haven't, then you should. So I will link a handy resource about that in the description. And if you'd like to find any of these guests' episodes, you can head to our podcast or YouTube channels. Suffice to say, albeit not the wisest crab in the coral reef, I've been able to synthesize trends, challenges, and tactics of my guests into a pretty well rounded view of B2B marketing at the moment. But you can decide that for yourself at the end, I guess. I also just want to mention that we have actually just reached 50,000 downloads of the FINITE Podcast with around 5,000 views on YouTube. So this episode comes as a nice little celebration and a thank you. Thank you for listening. Right, let's get cracking. I've done some research and scoured through the many articles and blog posts about trends and expectations for B2B marketing in the new year. But first, does anyone else find it strange when companies post these in August or September to get a head start? Like, yes, we should be planning early, but a lot can change in 3 months. One good example of this is LinkedIn comedians. I've seen more and more LinkedIn comedians on the scene. None of them sponsored yet, as far as I can tell, but watch this space. Ken Chang is a great one if you'd like to have a look at what I mean. I'll put his LinkedIn in the episode description. So, one of the articles in my research that I was drawn to was by Forrester, of course, our favorite analysts. They get a lot of clicks in our fortnightly newsletter, The Finite Times. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. They've just mastered the art of building trust and credibility, as far as I can tell. So, Seth Mars, their principal analyst, very specific job title, you see, and Riley McDonnell, research associate, wrote an article called Predictions 2025 Gen AI as a Growth Driver Will Put B2B Executives to the Test. Seth and Riley's first prediction is labeled The Good. AI co-workers will emerge as valued team members in 2 out of 5 organizations. They based this prediction on the stat that 64% of global B2B marketing leaders plan to increase spending on AI technology in the next year. And this prediction makes me think, I think what marketers or these guys might not recognize that AI does not know what it's saying. It has no sense of judgment. And if we're marketing for companies that do not think judgment is necessary or very important in marketing, then I think we're working for the wrong companies. In fact, in my opinion, marketing is all judgment. Even with streams of data, that data doesn't tell you what to do next. You need to analyze and then judge the best option. Even on a less strategic level, there's judgment in every single form of content creation. Which analogy to include in your video script, or which statistic to start off your blog with. On content, AI also struggles with originality, something that Google now prioritizes in their search result rankings. All this to say, can AI really be considered a coworker? Maybe if we want to start heading into the uncanny valley. Perhaps these authors want to hone in on some underlying fears that AI will take our jobs. And they're right that AI use is increasing and it probably will have a more dominant role in our jobs. And you know what? Call it what you like. As this emerging notion goes, Finite Podcast guests and myself would suggest using AI as a tool and not a substitute. By the way, Forrester has a truckload more 2025 predictions if you'd like to sift through their collection of reports called Predictions 2025 Hard Won Insights Drive Growth. All right, we've got the AI chat out of the way. What's next? So, another prediction states the preference for unified multi channel interactions is rising and is crucial in 2025. This article was by Melody Selby on MadisonLogic.com. She bases this prediction on the stat that 90% of B2B buying journeys are now completed before any sales interaction. I agree that this stat highlights the need for a consistent digital first approach. 2025 won't see the death of BDMs, but they've definitely got an increasingly easy job as consumers do loads of research themselves before they even hit that book a demo button. It's a pretty obvious prediction to unify your channels and messaging, but it's a nice reminder as to the importance of this, and it's one that I saw across many articles this year. Last year, we talked a lot about internal silos, the age old question of how best to integrate marketing and sales. This year, though, we've been seeing a lot of talk on channel silos and creating a unified approach to engage at each stage of the buying journey. But that does impact internal team structure as well. Who owns what and which channels work side by side or separately? I've heard of events working with social and copywriting working alongside video production. New channels are emerging and team structures need to adapt to changing channel priorities. One good example of this is short videos. I'm talking like 1 to 2 minutes, like TikToks. They're such an easy way to gain views from B2B audiences on YouTube. And something tells me LinkedIn is going to be a primary platform for B2B shorts soon. Is your team structure ready to shift in response to changing content consumption habits? Just something to think about. Okay, let's talk about one more article anymore, and I'm sure you'll get way too sick of my voice. So, this article by Cognism features the predictions of growth advisor Gaetano Donati. I actually agreed with a lot of his predictions, including Google will be even more volatile than 2024. You might have seen the drama going on at Google at the moment. They're under a bit of scrutiny in general. So, as B2B marketers, we'll need to watch out for new changes coming out as they attempt to decrease pressure and adapt to a changing search environment, such as AI image generation. Is anyone a little bit freaked out by the amount of AI images coming up for really simple terms like yellow lion? Like, I just want to see a yellow lion. I don't want to see your weird AI interpretation. Thank you very much. But luckily, if you search for cat, then actual cats do come up, which is very cute. So I also agree with his prediction that says companies will invest more in outsourcing. The tech layoffs continue to burden us as our teams get smaller and our to-do lists get longer. The solution? Lower your headcount, but maintain your output by relying on consultants, freelancers, and agencies. This seems like a pretty solid prediction from my side. But one of Gaetan's is interesting though. He says B2B marketers will play it safe. He says marketers will take a lot less risks because of what's happening in the world. We have a lot of instabilities going on. It's harder than ever for companies to get funding. We're seeing 90% of startups fail. The numbers are staggering, and no one is safe. Ooh, I've got chills, and not the good kind. Let's be a little bit more optimistic on the FINITE podcast, please. I just want to remind us all of a little something something. We're competing against multiple B2B companies for the same pool of people. If we rely too heavily on podcasts, playbooks, and guides, if we aim to follow trends rather than start them, if we're all doing the same thing, how will we ever beat market competitors? I think people underestimate the importance of standing out. And I know you probably know this, but I just want to emphasize when 70% of B2B market leaders increase their market share over the past year, widening the gap with competitors, we need to be doing some pretty special stuff to stand out. So unleash your creativity and don't be scared to test and learn. Try and perhaps fail to convince your board that measuring ROI on every single little thing is not only unachievable, but perhaps quite limiting. Right. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'd love to know if you enjoyed it or hated it, want more of this format or less, want me to get the F off and bring back more amazing CMOs, which I will do too, of course. Even if you just want to say hi, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll put my LinkedIn in the episode description. See you on the next one.